So in this video today, we're going to be looking at how you would go about filling out an electrical installation certificate and what information might be required to be recorded on this certification. Okay, so if we look at the on-site guide, Appendix G, it's all about certificating and reporting, and this is what we're going to gain information from for undertaking the filling out and completion of electrical installation certificate. We also in here, okay, we have model forms, and again this is just an idea of how to complete one of these certificates. Now you can use software, and we're going to be using software in this video rather than handwritten to show you two different elements. With the minor work certificate that we did that as handwritten, and now we're going to look at maybe how we can save ourselves some admin time or make it a bit easier for us as electricians using a software. And this is the start of our electrical installation certificate. As you can see on the screen, we've got client name, installation address, the client address, etc. So remember, the client address could be different to where the install was actually taken place. A lot of the time it's going to be the same, however, for bigger companies, it may be different. Okay, now obviously I can't leave the address I used here in for obvious reasons. But again, that's just the information that will change depending on where you're doing the install work. Then we have to talk about the extent of installation covered by this certificate. This was following on from an EICR, so as you can see, just put a little bit of information in there talking about this is the remedial work and safe for previous EICR. Now you could only have to do a minor work certificate, however in this case, because we changed the consumer unit as you can see, and we put a new circuit in for a cooker and a hob while we was there, we've noted that. Now description of premises, again depending on where you are, this is where you would select which one. This was obviously in residential, okay, or domestic. And then installation is, okay, and you can see we've got three tick boxes there: new, an addition and an alteration. You look at that and you think, oh, it says an addition, a minor works covers an addition. This would maybe mean an additional circuit. So you notice that I've picked two here, put in an additional circuit to an existing installation. It's not a whole new installation. And an alteration being a consumer unit change. Sometimes we see that people have ticked new or an addition when we put a consumer unit in, where in fact it's actually just an alteration to an existing installation. So we tick which one there is actually necessary. And then when we scroll down, it will ask for details of the company for the design, construction, inspection and testing. Also, on bigger jobs, it may be that different people are undertaking the construction, the design and the testing. So if somebody different has, let's say, somebody's installed it and somebody else has come in and tested it or inspected and tested it, it's important that, number one, the person inspecting and testing must have seen the different levels of the job. Okay, so they must have the design information. They also must have seen elements of the construction, okay, to make sure cables are in zones, etc. But that would be what we call a multi-signature certificate, where different people would have to put their details on there. This is just for myself who's doing it, so I'm responsible for the design, construction and the inspection and testing. Details of any departures or exceptions from BS 7671. It could be that you're actually in an industrial setting and you don't want an RCD on a socket outlet, and you've done a risk assessment for that and you've labelled the socket. Again, that's something you would maybe note here. And anything else that is departed from BS 7671 or is in the installation, it isn't included in BS 7671. Then we have a box here where we talk about the comments on the existing installation. So again, anything you find, remember this certificate relates to the work you've done. So it might be that you've noted something and it's a good idea to put it here. That just allows the customer or the client to see what the installation, because remember they might not be there, so it gives them little ideas, okay? And then it talks about signatures here. And then an important one, the next inspection. Okay, so when you have a brand new installation, okay, so an installation from scratch, it's actually up to the designer to allocate the next interval of inspection and testing, so an EICR, and we will come to them certificates in a later video, or not certificates, sorry, reports. Once you go to that first interval, so let's say the designer's picked it at 10 years, when you go back as an inspector and tester after them 10 years, it's actually your job to provide the next interval, and that will be based on what you've found, the condition of the installation and lots of other factors. So that's the first page of the electrical installation certificate. Again, basic information really. Then we move to system characteristics. So what you're going to see here is you're actually going to see earthing arrangements. You're going to have to allocate an earthing arrangement to it depending on what the system has. Number and type of live conductors. So we had AC, one phase, two wire, the two wire actually being line and neutral. Then we have the supply parameters, okay? So notice here on this certificate, we have two nominal voltages as such. We have U and UO. So U basically is your line-to-line voltage or your phase-to-phase voltage, which would be 400 volts. Now, that wasn't present in this installation. It wasn't three-phase. Our UO was 230 volts. Good thing about software, it has little help elements where it talks about this is the measured voltage between line conductor and earth. Some of our test results actually start going here, okay? So we have our prospective fault current, which you can see how to perform that in a video that will pop up on the screen now. We also have our external earth fault loop impedance, so our ZE, which is here, 0.16. And again, a video will come up on the screen so you can watch how to undertake that test. We then talk about the maximum demand and the supply protective device, which we put information there. If we can't access that, maybe the device isn't labelled up, okay, from the supply authority, we may have to put unknown in there, dependent on what we find. Then we have particulars of the installation. So this is what we're going to basically talk about means of earthing. We have two types really, distributor's facility and earth electrode. Earth electrode would be maybe if we had an earthing arrangement that says TT. We don't have a TT installation here. We have a TNS earthing arrangement. Therefore, the distributor, so Western Power, has actually provided us with our means of earthing. So then NA goes in these boxes here where it talks about earth electrode. So if you ever have distributor's facility and that's what you've been provided with, then the following boxes where it talks about an earth electrode is going to be not applicable. Here we have, talks about the main switch view, circuit breaker, RCD. So it's really talking about the main switch in the installation. Again, you fill these out dependent on what you actually have in your installation. So we talk about conductor materials, number of poles. This is a double pole switch. A common mistake is people insert fuse device settings, okay? So they'll put that as 100 amps when actually it's not a fuse, it's just a switch. Same with the RCD. If it's just a double pole main switch to BSEN 60947-3, then there's no RCD operating current, etc. That's only if you have an RCD main switch. We will be able to input our RCBO information or RCD information that we have in the board at a later point in the certificate. Then we talked about the earthing conductor, again, the size, the material, did it pass the continuity check? And again, with our main protective bonding conductors, again, with sizes, etc. If you're not familiar with ADS, a video will come up on the screen, okay, because this all links to ADS and the sizes. A video will come up where you can watch that to refamiliarise yourself with the sizes that things should be, especially in newer installs. Now, one of the biggest changes on the electrical installation certificate from Amendment 2 of BS 7671 2022 to the previous edition is actually the schedule of inspections. Now, if you look, the previous schedule of inspections, okay, was over a couple of pages, and as you can see, there's lots of different checkboxes we have to check. Now, it's important to note that we can only put a tick or an NA in these boxes, okay? It can either pass or it's not applicable to our installation. So when we use NA, it means that there's nothing in our installation that we've covered, that we've worked on, that is applicable to this certificate. Yeah, as you can see, 2 pages, there's lots of headings there. Now, one thing that hasn't really changed is if you look at the subheadings of them 2 pages, that's what really we have here, okay? Now, the points that we was checking previously, we're still checking for most of these. Some of them have changed, so especially for the condition of the consumer's intake equipment, as you can see on the screen now, that a couple of them we don't actually have to check where we did before, but most of them the same. But again, consult BS 7671 for the inspection points that are needed for each of these subheadings. And a newer one now we have here is the prosumer's low voltage electrical installations, okay, and it's talking all about energy efficiency and things like that. So again, it's going to save us a lot of time as electricians, especially with admin work. We all hate it to a degree. Then we come on to the boards and the circuits. So as you can see, okay, we now have circuit details and circuit test results. Now, it's very, very important to remember, for an electrical installation certificate to be valid, it must be accompanied by a completed schedule of inspections, a completed circuit details sheet, and a completed circuit test result sheet. That's new to the amendment. Circuit detail sheet was never a requirement, whereas it is now. On the circuit details, we have information of the designation of the circuit, number of points, the type of wiring, etc. And all of these will be different dependent on the circuits you install or the circuits you're testing. reference method, so we can change them there, the size of live conductors, okay, and the size of the CPC, disconnection times, our overcurrent protected devices, their ratings, etc. Okay, so we used RCBOs in this installation, so we have 61009 and they were type B, and we're talking about B curve there, they were type A RCBOs as well. In the RCD section, the I delta M value, which you can see here, was 30 milliamps. And then this is where we put in our test results. We've got our ring final circuit tests. A video will pop up on the screen so you can see that being undertaken. We have our R1 plus R2, so our continuity of protective conductors. Again, these videos are available for you to watch and revisit how to test these. We have our insulation resistance testing, okay, which has slightly changed as well, which will come in a later video. Now, what it talks about with insulation resistance is we should undertake the insulation resistance, especially for new installs as such, we should undertake it before any equipment is connected, okay, so we can actually test it at 500 volts to bring it away from testing at 250 maybe, where we have equipment connected. We then talk about polarity, okay, which would have been done with our continuity of protective conductors here. Our measured ZS, so our earth fault loop impedance. Again, video will come up on the screen of testing earth fault loop impedance and different ways to test it on different settings. Our RCD test results, so again, this is a change for most of us. We went from recording ×1 ×5, okay, to recording ×5 only last time in the previous edition of the regulations, and now that's actually changed, which we've done a video on again, where we there's only a requirement to record at 1 times the RCD's value. The RCD test button we must still check and record, and then any AFDDs, again, we're going to start installing these now, so these will become a little bit more common. Again, not applicable to this installation, so the NA is quite important, because it just means that the work I did and the work when we was there, this certificate does not cover any AFDDs that will come in the future, okay, because it was not applicable at the time of this and the date of this certificate. Circuit vulnerable to test, again, this is where you put, maybe you've got smoke detectors or anything like that. Naturally, we've used RCBOs, which are vulnerable to testing, especially for insulation resistance. Therefore, just to let any future electricians know, if they come and look at this before they attend the property, they should have an idea that there is vulnerabilities there, and it gives them a chance to plan ahead. Again, we must have the person who's tested it, signature, and the date also. Now, again, remember, an electrical installation certificate has to be accompanied by a completed schedule of inspections, a completed circuit detail sheet, and a completed circuit test result sheet. As always, we hope this video has been some help.